Well, my very patient wife finally got tired of me info dumping at her about firearms, so here I am. But why should you care what I think about guns? Or, well, anything really. Well, I've been reading about firearms since I found out there were books on the subject, and I've been shooting since I was 12. In fact, here's the first gun I ever shot. I was introduced to firearms and shooting by my father and my grandfather, who gave me the foundation of my practical firearms knowledge and shared stories of how firearms were treated and viewed in their youth, as well as their experiences growing up with firearms and their use during my grandfather's military service. Other than that, I'm mostly self-taught, and I've also taken various firearms courses over the years from people who know what they're about. The trick is really just listening to people who are visibly better at shooting than you are. In life and in school, I've always been a student of history, and I think that gives me an interesting perspective on how firearms are woven into the fabric of our society, past and present. I've also been involved in competition shooting for about a decade now, mostly 3-gun for the last 6 years. I've competed at some point in most of the pistol-focused disciplines and 2-gun matches as well. I'd love to shoot them all, but as the dad of 3, I have a finite amount of spare time to play with. I mean, I have all my cowboy action shooting gear, and I haven't made it out to a single match. But what I'm most proud of is how many people I've convinced over the years to get into firearms and turned into competent shooters who no longer feared firearms as an object. Some so successfully that they went out and spent piles of money doing gun ownership to the max. You know who you are. What I want to do with this channel is in part demystify firearms ownership. Guns shouldn't be viewed as some kind of totem with mystical power, but a tool that's been used by hero and villain alike. I think the best way to demonstrate this is to show the various historical and practical uses of firearms and why there is in fact a societal benefit to an armed and trained populace. On the more lighthearted side of things, I also want to talk about the guns and gear that I personally like, what considerations there are in choosing a firearm for defense or sport shooting, what gear works well, and what's a pointless gimmick that I already wasted money on so you don't have to. I'll be establishing what's good and what's not so good by using it at the range, in competitions, and comparing and contrasting that with real-world, present-day, and historical examples. Naturally, there will be some respectful political discussion too, since firearms and politics are inseparable. I'm not interested in pointing fingers and dunking on anyone, just clarifying why the debate goes on the way it does and challenging people's preconceived notions about firearms and firearms ownership. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy the channel. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and remember, we could all be a little more free and a lot more self-reliant. All it takes is a little responsibility.